Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Want to start by first saying Happy Drinking Water Week to everyone. This is a big week in our world, and so thanks to all of you for all that you do. It's a good time to celebrate all your accomplishments, and I'll maybe tease the fact that while we're not having the Drinking Water Awards ceremony this week, we are planning on recognizing public water systems with excellent compliance at next month's call. And so the commissioner has committed to doing sort of an awards type ceremony in June. So look forward to that. And I think notices to the recipients of those awards will be going out shortly. So with that, I'll turn it over to the commissioner and we can get started.
Great, thanks. And thank you, Jen. And I also want to wish everybody the best on Drinking Water Week. It goes without saying, but needs to be said anyway, given particularly what all of you have been operating under this past year, the performance, the delivery of an essential service, clean drinking water to our communities is very much appreciated, and we have valued working with all of you, and I'm looking forward to finding a way, even virtually, to celebrate this a little bit next month. And so I'm very much looking forward to that. A reminder that this call is recorded, as all of them are. We use the recordings, we put them up on our website in case they're a useful reference for people going forward. They're in the place where we have also our FAQs, the questions and answers that we've developed during the course of the COVID emergency, to make sure that people have the most up-to-date information. I'm pleased to be here with you. We're also joined by Kathy Baskin, our head of the water programs at DEP, Yvette DePisa, director of the drinking water program, Damon Gutterman, and Mike Maynard, who I'll turn the floor over to in a little bit. We are going to have a few updates before we turn to questions and answers that may generate it. But first, as always, we're fortunate to have Jane Downing from EPA New England with us, and so we wanted to give her an opportunity to present any updates that she may have from US EPA.
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you, Jen. And it's always a pleasure for me to be with all of you today and all the other days. And particularly, not only this week is Drinking Water, but it's also Public Service Recognition Week. So it's a double duty for all of you, and you're tremendously dedicated public servants. So we thank you for all that you do. I think I have a few updates today. Let's start with funding because it's been very busy at the national level. The first one is that last week, the administrator of EPA, Administrator Regan, announced the initiation of the WIFIA program for FY 2021. It's a $5.5 billion program for drinking water and wastewater. It is competitive at the national level. There are 5 priority areas. So if you go online, you will see them, but it includes addressing impacts to climate change, talks about cybersecurity, underserved communities, and dealing with lead and emerging contaminants. So there is a lot embedded in those priority areas. I think many of you know about WIFIA, a lot of big dollar projects, $20 million minimum for large communities, $5 million for small communities. It's been very successful. If you are interested in this, the letters of intent are due July 23rd, 2021. So this is coming up. And a lot of details on this program is available on the website, EPA's website, www.epa.gov/WIFIA. So think about that if you're so inclined. The next event that happened again last week, I think you're probably all following what's happening in Congress. Congress passed the Drinking Water and Wastewater Infrastructure Act last week. It was a reauthorization of the Clean Water and Drinking Water Act. It's not the appropriation, it's the reauthorization. but we are talking about a lot of dollars. So for example, over the course of 5 years, the total is $35 billion for clean water and drinking water. For next year, for FY22, which is when the budget would kick in, they are estimating, or they're authorizing, $2.4 billion for the drinking water SRF. And just as context, that is double what we get nationally for FY21. So if it passes, now, as you all know, the way it goes, it has to be reconciled with the House. President needs to sign the bill, and then we have to go through appropriations. So this is an amount of money that may kick in FY22, but it is fairly significant. There's additional projects and money for lead removal and school testing. So we're very excited about that. And there's a brand new program standing up if it does go forward for lead inventories. So very exciting, something that we will all continue to follow. And again, a lot of money coming to infrastructure, and rightly so. So that's it for funding. I want to just call your attention to a number of webinars that are coming up. And the first one is very exciting. Take out your calendar right now and put in May 26th. That is the New England Water Sector Cybersecurity Forum. So EPA and MassDEP will be hosting this for New England. And I believe we have a very special speaker opening it up, Commissioner Subra. We appreciate your guidance and support of this, and lots of great speakers from the cybersecurity world. So Water ISAC, CISA, the Cybersecurity and Security Infrastructure Agency. So that's Department of Homeland Security, from EPA headquarters, and we will have a panel. So it is for New England. It is going to be offered nationally, but the topic is cybersecurity, which I think we've all been talking about it for quite a few months. The next couple of webinars deal with a variety of subjects. If you're interested in how to access laboratory support, so if you're in the middle of a crisis, if there's a contamination event, on May 13th, there is a webinar available to you. Again, it's a guide for utilities to step you through how you would gather laboratory support. Also on May 13th is another webinar. This is focused on source water protection and how you might look at spills. What national report has come out on where contamination is coming from. And there's a special GIS tool available to utilities to help them develop an idea of where the threats are, and then source water protection. And then finally, I will remind you, as I always have, that there's an important deadline coming up on June 30th. June 30th is a deadline under AWEA, and it's a deadline for not only medium public water supply systems, but also small public water supply systems. So if you serve between 50,000 and 99,999, less than 100,000, then on June 30th, you should certify that you have completed your emergency response plans. If you're a small system between 3301, a little bit more than 3,300, and 49,999, then you must certify by June 30th that you have completed your risk and resilience assessment. So it's a big target, it's a big deadline. I know you've all been busy doing these important planning guidance. So I think that's it. We'll see you on May 26th, if not before. Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Jen.
Thanks, and thanks for the updates. And I know some of the information that you were talking about, some useful links have been appearing in the chat at the bottom of the screen. So much appreciate that, Jane, and looking forward to participating in the upcoming seminar. Mike Maynard from our licensing board, would you mind unmuting yourself and providing us with some updates, please?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. I just wanted to go over a couple of things. that come up at some of the DPL meetings, and Jen's pulling it up on the screen. All applications are going to be submitted online effective 7/1/21. We're still waiting on final confirmation with that with DPL in their IT department, but all applications should be submitted. That's for operator certification as of 7/1/21. So I just figured I'd go over a couple of these things. And if you can pass this message on to, if you're a superintendent or a regional director or a drinking water director, just kind of go over this is where most of the mistakes are made. This is the first page of the application. And I hate to get down into the weeds, but if people submit accurate applications, it does not have to go back to the operator and to the superintendent. I know a lot of people are busy, and if more and more people at DPL have to touch the application and contact the operator, it adds a lot of time onto it. So this is the first page of the application, and this is the checkbox. So you're looking at the first one is, I'll just go through them quickly, but just pay attention. If you can have the operators who are filing applications to pay attention to these things. Page 1, ABC test score, very important. The board wants to see that. Second thing is proof of education. And the important thing here is the last line, which is underlined. All candidates submitting post-secondary education must include a copy of college transcripts. We send a lot of applications back because they do not include the transcripts. They don't have to be formal transcripts, so you don't have to get them stamped and everything, but we would like to have a copy of the transcripts. Otherwise, they go back. Proof of experience. So proof of experience, thank you, Jen. And this is a copy of the job description directly from the employer. And this could be the job posting if it's a collective bargaining one, and or a letter from the supervisor detailing the duties and responsibilities. So this is which describes the position. Candidates also include verification from their employer for service. So we need to know when you started the job and how many hours a week you're doing it. Next category, thank you, Jen. Training course certification. So this is the copy of the certificate from New England Waterworks, Mass Waterworks, Bristol Community College, or Cal State. So for the D2, 3, and 4, it's the basic distribution training course certificate. So this is the prerequisite course. For the T2, it's the basic treatment course. And for the T3 and T4, it's the advanced treatment training course. So if you please stress, if they submit these things, they're going to download them onto the application on the DPL website, and the applications will sail through. Jen, can you bounce over to page 5, which is the experience section? And then I'll be done with going over the application. So this is another area where the majority of the mistakes are made. And scroll down, so the experience section. So if an applicant has more than one job experience, complete a separate experience sheet for each job. So if they worked at Agawam and they worked at MWRA, just a separate experience sheet for each application. So then the distribution section and treatment should correspond to the duties in the job description. Also, you'll see where the hours per day and the days per week. So what the board or what DPL does is they add those hours. So it's hours to hours. So for 1 year's worth of experience, it's 2,000 hours of actual experience time. So if you're working 4 hours a day, 5 days a week, and you work 1 year, you're actually giving a half a year's experience in distribution and treatment. So that's a quick rundown. If you could stress people to just submit accurate, complete applications, they go through a lot faster. Once DPL administrative staff have to send out fish letters and things like that. It slows the process down. So we're looking at 7/1/21 for applications to be submitted online. Any questions, send them to myself, michael.maynard@mass.gov, or drinkingwaterboard@mass.gov. That's it for me. Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for the report, and thanks for sticking around in case there are any questions that come up in the either now or later. A few updates that we wanted to provide. First of all, DEP. We're continuing to do business as we have been doing through the COVID crisis. You're starting to see more announcements about opening schedules for things. And including the governor's recent announcement about capacity changes and bigger changes on August 1st. For right now, as with other Commonwealth agencies, we're continuing to operate in the same mode that we have been. So however you've been communicating with us, continue to communicate with us. As we get more guidance going forward, we will make it a point to tell people if there are changes, if offices are starting to open. But right now, there are no changes, and I wouldn't anticipate any changes, certainly in the next few weeks. So we'll stay in touch on that. So the same methods of communication you've been using, we'll continue to use. And like I say, if there are any changes, we will make it a point to give you as much advance notice and as much detailed information as possible. We've had questions about, some of the relief funding for utilities. On past calls, we've talked about there was one pot of money, about $638 million nationwide to help low-income utility customers who might be in arrearage with their payments. As we talked about on the last call, the funding had not yet been transferred from the federal government to the state. There are some signs of movement. I think it's probably best at this point for me to turn it over to Jen Peterson, because I know she's been talking to our colleagues at Housing and Community Development about how that funding might come in and what some of the milestones ahead might be. So Jen, if I could put you on the spot here.
Yep, sure, Commissioner. Thank you. Yeah, actually, we just had a call about an hour ago with Ed Kiley from Housing and Community Development. Now, they oversee the LIHEAP program. So this money that's going to be for the low income assistance for water and wastewater ratepayers is going to basically be based on the same eligibility for the energy assistance program. So a customer would get qualified for LIHEAP through one of the service organizations that works with DHCD. There are about 26 across the Commonwealth. So if they qualify for LIHEAP, they will qualify for this water ratepayer assistance. The state is still looking for some guidance from federal home housing and HHS, Housing and Health and Human Services, on how the distribution is going to happen nationwide. So they're not yet sure exactly how much money will come to Massachusetts particularly. And then they have to figure out how to equitably distribute it across the state. And so they are, cognizant of the fact that there are areas of the state that have private well owners who may not have a water bill. So they're thinking about that and wanted our input on that piece of it. And then we also talked today about the issue of renters. And so we made it clear that in Massachusetts, most of the water bills are, homeowner related, not through renters, but HHS is saying that the state can't discriminate against renters versus homeowners. And so there is still this issue that has to be figured out about how renters would qualify for low income water ratepayer assistance, and it may be a smaller pot of money or, something a little bit different, but it's clear that renters have to be included. And so, we are a little bit concerned about that just because there are other pots of money through the COVID relief packages that we're particular to renters, and we do want to make sure that water utilities get the money and are able to pay down those bills rather than renters getting the money directly and maybe not not using it for water utility because it's embedded in their rent. So they're cognizant of those issues. We still have to work some of that out. And I think the big still unknown is when the money will actually flow to the state. And I think I said in a previous call it could be October before we see any money. And and it still does depend upon when HHS releases that to the state. I think the state is in a pretty good shape to move forward quickly once they get the guidance and the money from HHS, basing it on that LIHEAP model, but it will all depend on sort of that piece. So it may still be, a few months out before we see that, but at least the latest guidance from HHS is it doesn't have to be like a full 30-day comment period on releasing the funds. It can, it can be a brief public comment opportunity, and then the state can just roll that out. And basically it would, flow to the utilities through these service organizations. So utilities aren't going to have to pre-qualify their residents. We do hope that utilities will do some marketing about this to make sure that their customers are aware that if they're eligible for LIHEAP, they may be eligible for this water ratepayer assistance money as well. But aside from that, it should be relatively easy on the utility side to implement that and hopefully get some arrearages paid down and have some money left for future bills, perhaps even if the person who's eligible doesn't have, arrearages in the amount of whatever. They come up with basically a standard formula of everyone's going to receive X dollars. So those X dollars would go to the utility and be allowed to apply to future bills as well. So I think that's probably a quick recap with more details to come as we get more guidance from HHS.
Great. Thanks, Jen. Very timely. And this is hopefully a good forum for us to talk about it as we move forward. So with that, we'll turn now to questions we received in advance. And there was one question we received in advance, and after that, we can open it up to either questions that come in via email or chat or people who want to unmute themselves. But we did get a question, and it's, I'm just going to read it verbatim to make sure I'm doing it justice. And they're showing a picture of the form that you need to fill out for distributing the CCR. And it says, for the three best faith efforts for distributing the CCR, she's circled the categories here. If you did two of those options, for example, newspaper and social media, do those count as two of your efforts, or are those both considered the same type and would only fulfill one effort? There's a box for each type, but then there is a box for the whole category on the far left. So it's a little confusing how to count them up. And I don't know that we have the ability to pull the picture up, but it's section F of the good faith delivery methods on the form. And so I might ask either Yvette or Damon, whoever wants to take the lead in answering that question. I know we've had a little bit of time to look into this, and so I might ask one of them to answer. Ah, there's the form. Okay. I don't know if we can blow that up or not, but.
This is Damon. I can take this answer. Yeah, we did start working on it just immediately before this call. So, hopefully we'll get a better answer in a moment or two. But this is the certification form for delivering your consumer confidence report. And this is the section F, which talks about the good faith efforts to hit the people that don't pay water bills, like the renters Jen was just talking about. And the element that is causing some confusion is this: about halfway down, there's an advertise the availability of your CCR in one of the following news medias. And the question was whether or not checking each of those independent news medias counts as a separate best effort. And the quick answer is no. The intention of the form was that the left-hand column of those boxes are the independent actions. And so you had to check 3 of those actions, but we were trying to gather some more information within each of them where it's appropriate to figure out how you met that category. There may be a little disconnect between each of the left-hand boxes and our regulations, and we'll review that and make sure we fix that if there are any. But if you were to, yeah, thanks, there we go. If you were to check any of those left-hand boxes, it counts as one good faith effort. And then we do ask you to provide the additional information so we know how you met that effort. You'll see in some of the other ones that can be asked for a web page link, or we even gave you an option of telling us new ways. And one of the reasons there's a little disconnect between this and the regulations is that the federal requirement is that the state should establish how these good faith efforts should be met. And so we wrote in 8 independent ways in our regulations 10, 15 years ago, whatever it is now. And we've been getting a lot more input from the utilities about, what if I did something like a digital signboard or social media posts? And all of those are newer technologies that didn't exist when we wrote the regulations. So we've been trying to capture some of that information in the certification form, because we can edit this much more easily than we can our regulations. But what we would hope to do is, in a subsequent regulation package, expand upon the 8 official ways of doing it, where we feel that some of these new methods are acceptable to meet non-bill paying customers. That's it.
Okay, thanks, Damon. And thanks, Jen, for being able to get the picture up on the screen. All right, so that was, I think, our only prior submitted question. So if anybody wants to submit anything via chat or email, or just unmute yourself, now would be a good time.
Hi, how's it going? This is Paul Furlan from the city of Fall River.
Hi.
So I think other people too have probably seen concerns about chlorine issues, and I know all supplies, whether it be construction materials or potential other supplies, demands are really changing. Is there contingency plans? Does the state have any ability to look in to see whether if there is supply shortages, is there a prioritization to be able to supply drinking water and wastewater facilities with needed chemicals?
It's a good question. This came up early in the emergency.
Correct.
We had some, concerns about oxygen, and we had some concerns about other chemicals. And I think, thankfully, things were relatively stable over the past few months. But if you're saying chlorine is starting to be, getting adequate chlorine supplies is starting to be a source of concern.
So far, it hasn't been a particular concern. I've just been hearing in some national news and stuff, there's concern with more on a consumer pools and stuff like that type of material. But I don't know if it's going to have overlap into our materials.
Okay. Well, we should definitely stay in touch on that, because what we did last time was we had the benefit of having EPA on the call, so they were talking to their emergency management folks, and we would similarly engage with MEMA and others in state government to start getting people to think about it early. So it's definitely a good reminder of an issue that we need to keep track of. So I might encourage us that if the situation continues to develop like what you're seeing on the consumer side, if you will, we ought to talk about it early and make sure that we're letting our partners in the emergency fields know. So we'll maybe make that once again as we do these check-ins. We'll make it a point to make sure we're asking that question.
All right. Yeah. Thank you again. I just wanted to bring it up, like you said, early, so that it doesn't become an issue later on. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Good suggestion. And we'll check in with our emergency colleagues anyway to see if they're hearing things through their own courses. And
Commissioner-
Damon, Johnny on the spot has already posted a story about pool chemical shortages in the chat. I'm sorry, somebody was trying to say something.
I'm sorry, Commissioner, this is Jane Downing. So I want to underscore that we would absolutely want to know about it if there's any kind of, if there's thinking that there's going to be an issue on any kind of chemical. We have learned lessons from previous shortages or anticipated shortages like oxygen. And at the national level, they have set up a coordinating committee. So EPA is in touch with CISA and is in touch with the chemical sector. So they can easily, well, I don't know how easily, but they can gather together these agencies and talk about issues and try to get the attention. And they have actually done that in the past on particular cases. So I just underscore what you said, Commissioner, which is let us know about it as early as you can. Of course, there'll be a lot of action at the local level, including the warrants. They might be helpful to, deal with a shortage, but if it becomes larger than that, we absolutely want to know about it and we'll work closely with the state. So thank you for that.
Right.
So I'm seeing in chat, Elise from Springfield has said, we reached out to our chlorine gas supplier this week and they assured us that at this time, there's no concern with shortages of chlorine gas and it was only with pool chemicals.
Good to know, but a really important reminder.
Anybody else have questions? They can certainly feel free to unmute. If you're on a phone, *6. All right, going once, going twice, gone. Thank you all for your participation today, and thank you again, Commissioner, for joining us monthly. And our next check-in will be June 1st. And again, it's our intention to maybe have a little bit of a longer session that day so that we can recognize folks with the Public Water System Awards for 2020, which 2020 was an extraordinary year. So we want to be sure that we're giving some proper recognition, even if we can't do so in person. So unless anyone has anything last minute, we can end the call for today and reconvene on June 1st.
And thank you once again. We very much appreciate the ongoing ability to talk about these issues.
Great. All right. Have a great afternoon, everyone, and have a wonderful rest of your drinking water week. Thanks.
Thank you.